All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started here. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's Lunch and Learn training session. My name is Ben Decker, and I am joined by Jen Fairley-Custer from our support account management team, who will be leading today's session on SMS, item, margins, best practices. After 56 years providing retail technology solutions to grocers, we understand that proper training and follow-through is key to successful implementation and ROI from any new retail technology, especially POS and back office solution. To support our customers further and provide insights to any grocer that's interested in learning more about our solutions, we have put together this monthly webinar series to help address questions and provide greater understanding of the products provided by STCR. These occur on the last Thursday of every month, and while the topics can vary, aim to provide additional training and value to your use of STCR solutions. Today, we'll be providing best practices overview of item margins within SMS. Jen will take you through the important fields, reports, and recommendations for your data maintenance efforts. We welcome and are happy to take any questions via the QA function along the way, and we'll answer them at the end of Jen's presentation. If we miss or do not cover your question in our allotted time, we will follow up with you after the session as well. All of these sessions are being recorded so that they can be reviewed by other members of your team anytime in the future. In a moment, there will be a brief QA prompt on your screen. I appreciate your cooperation and participation with that question today. Okay, and with that, Jen, take it away.
Thank you, Ben, for that introduction. As Ben stated, today's webinar is going to focus on margins. Before we jump into how to set and maintain margins in the SMS system, I'm going to go briefly over how SMS can calculate the margins. So there's two main methods that SMS uses to calculate the margins. We configure those at STCR when we install your system, but just so that you can see how they are configured and how you can look at them, it's under the configuration files under System INI and Miscellaneous. There's two different margin calculations listed. There's margin on cost and margin on retail. Margin on cost is going to give you the calculation on the retail price. So what does that mean? Looking at our price table right here, this is what's showing the calculation on the actual prices, the retail price, the TPR price, the sale price, and the store price, and how those are calculated. Margin on retail is the margin on your SRP, your suggested retail price. So you can choose which way you'd like to have those calculated. There is two different methods to calculate that on the cost, which is the retail price. You can have the percent of retail or percent of cost. What that means is that the margin will be calculated on the retail price, a percentage of the retail price, or it'll be calculated on the cost, a percentage of the cost. By default, the system is set to percent of retail, but that is something we can configure if you'd like to change that. The same thing exists for the margin on retail, which is the suggested retail price margin calculation. You can choose to have it be a percentage of the suggested retail price. So it's showing the margin in a percentage of that suggested retail price, or you can have it do a percentage of retail, which is the same thing as what's listed above for the margin on cost. So it shows the margin calculated from the retail price on the SRP, or you can just say not used, so it doesn't do any calculation. Again, this is something that we work with you on when we're setting up your system and decide which way is best for your business. So now that we know that, let's go back and now see how we can change the margin and use that to change our prices in the SMS system and set them. Up here, I have a standard item maintenance screen, and I'm going to use this item right here to show you how you can set the margin and calculate off of that. There is two different ways that you can change the margin on the system and set the margin. The first is using the cost record. So first off, cost is essential to maintaining your margin. You can come down here. So my cost on here is $24 for a case of 12 for a unit cost of $2. My current regular price is $2.67, which is a 25% margin. If I would like to change that, I can come down here. There is a $sign on the cost table that will allow me to set my margin and calculate the price for me. Over here is the margin field. This is what we're going to look at mostly. So you can either set the margin manually or pull it from the item. When you're pulling the margin from the item, it's looking specifically at the TGM on the retail price field right here in the price table. So right now my margin on the item is set to 25%, which is why right now currently I have a 25% margin on this item. If I would like to change this, I can come in here and I can set the margin manually. Instead of pulling it from the item, I can come in and say I would like to have a 30% margin. Down here, it shows you what the price will be based off the current cost. So the cost is $2, and that will make the price $2.86. You can then choose where to send it to. Do I want to send it to my retail price, my TPR price, my sale price, my in-store price, or I can create a batch. I can do a future retail, future TPR, future sale, or future in-store. I'm just going to go ahead and say I want to apply this to my retail price, and I hit one item, and now my price has been automatically updated. So I'm maintaining a 30% margin. That's a very useful tool, especially if you are going through and changing the cost on your items. So if you're going through and updating any cost changes, the cost of this has changed to $25, $26 for a case as the cost of the item goes up. You can then easily come up here and click on the calculate price, and it will recalculate the price for you based on whatever margin you would like, either the margin set in the item or margin set that you set manually. The other way that you can maintain your margin is actually on the price table using this TGM percentage field. If you make an adjustment to this, so if I come up, so I just set this to 30% on the cost. If I wanted to set a 24% margin, I can change the percentage right here. And when I save it, it's automatically going to pop up and say, hey, we noticed that you changed your margin. Do you want to generate the price? I can hit yes, I can hit no, I can hit cancel. If I hit yes, it will automatically generate the price, do the calculation for me so I get a 24% margin. If I hit no, it'll just leave the price as is. If you hit always, if you're unfamiliar with that, that's only for the session that you're currently in. So if you're going to go through and do a lot of changes to your margin, you're going to go through and adjust a large amount of them because you're raising the margin at the store or on a sub department, you can do always. So that way, as you're going through and adjusting the margin, it will remember that you said yes and automatically adjust the prices as you're doing that. The next time you log out and log back into SMS, you'll have to press this again. It's not always forever. It's just always for that session. Same thing with never. It will remember that selection. You said no. You're just adjusting the margins for informational purposes for the next time you change the cost. And you will remember that during that session. So we're going to go ahead and hit yes. And you can see that now my price is $263. And I have a 24% margin on my regular price. The nice thing about this is it is on each individual item, which can be a little bit tedious. But if you are using the like codes, for example, it will update other like codes. So for example, I did have two items up here that I have a like code on. So they have two different costs. My chocolate has a cost of $17.84 for 4, and my flour has a cost of $53. Right now, they're maintaining a 20% margin. I want to adjust this to 25. I adjust it to 25. I hit apply changes. I get the same prompt we just got. I'm going to say, yes, I want to adjust my price. This item had like codes. Would you like to update them? Yes, I would. So you can then say yes. And what it's going to do is going to prompt you again. This is also where coming into play with the global yes or the always will help. If you have a lot of items linked to the like code, it'll pop up for every single item. So this way you can do always, or you can do a global yes, which makes it so at least for this specific change that you're doing, it will say yes to all of them. If you only have a couple like codes, it's not so bad. So you can do yes. And then as I flip through, you can see that my price is now updated to maintain a 25% margin on both of them based off the cost. So it's doing that calculation. It's not just changing them all to the same price. It is changing them to the correct margin for that cost and for that item. So it's a nice, easy way to be able to update a lot of items. You can also use the global change. If you're unfamiliar with the global change, you can pull up a group of items in the system to use this button right here, which is called a global apply. So you can change the margin right here. So you can go back down to 20%, whatever it may be, and you can use the global apply. You'll get the prompt. I'm going to go ahead and hit yes, and then you'll get this prompt. So in this prompt, you would type in, doesn't matter if it's a light code, it just will affect all the items in the browser. You manually type in the word yes and do apply only changes. For both of these methods, the one gotcha with this is that, as I stated at the beginning, cost is essential. You have to have a cost record to calculate the margin if you're going to be using that. If there is no cost record, it will stop this and it will not apply. So if you have a group of items pulled up in the browser or a group of items in that light code and one item does not have a cost record, it will stop on that item and it will not continue. It will give an error message saying that it needs a cost record and it will stop and not update all the items. So cost is absolutely essential to do this, just as a gotcha. So once you've set your margins and you have all of your items set that you would like to have set with your margins, there is some tools available in the system that will help you track the margins and maintain the margins. For the most part, those are underneath the analysis menu. They are the margin analysis, margin for date, margin all future, and margin matrix. The first one is the margin analysis. And what this does is it gives you all of the margins on the prices for this item. It's not an editable field, but it's an informational field. This is browser based, so it's dependent on what item you have pulled up in the browser, so it will update as you're going through. It will show you all the prices, so regular price, sale price, and the margin for those, and the variant of that margin. How much is it variable from the original margin? The nice thing about this is that it will also show batches. This item was going to be going on a TPR batch, so it's in a batch currently. So it will show you that here as well. So it's going to be $2.60, which is a 23.1% margin. That is coming up. It shows you the cost at the top, the vendor that it's attached to with that cost, and the date that the cost was last changed. So the last time this cost was changed was on January 21st, 2019. The next one is our margin for a date. So I'm just going to pull this over so we can look at all these. Again, this one is browser based, so it is dependent on what item is pulled up in the browser right now. So it will update as you flip through. And what this does is that it allows you to compare margins with a previous date. It's a little bit confusing the way that they worded this, but the new is the date that you have selected at the top, and the current is what the item currently is. So this, you can come up, select any date that you would like to look at. Maybe you'd like to look at last year's, what you were making on this item, whatever it may be. So I have March 1st selected. You can also click back and forth if you just want to go back and forth by day. And the new is what the price was and cost was on this date. So on March 1st, 2023, I had the same regular price and the same cost. Nothing has changed. My current matches my current. I have the same retail price and the same cost. And so my margin was exactly the same. However, coming down to the active price, there is a difference. On March 1st, my active price was my regular price. It's showing me the source and it's showing what the active price was at $2.63. My cost was still the same. It's showing me that as well, so I can see what margin I was making on this day on the active price. Now, my current is what's currently in this item. So currently my item is on sale. So my active price is $2.50. My cost is still $12 for 24. So that is lowering my margin to 20% because my retail price is lower. My active price is lower. There is some information down here. If this item is scalable or has a scale table attached to it, if the status of the item, so the status of the item is allowed back order, anything like that, and the subdepartment. The reason why these are here is if something has changed since March or whatever date you're looking at, you may want to update that. Now you have the live tables over here, so maybe the subdepartment was subdepartment 81 back in March and it's changed to subdepartment 80 and it shouldn't be, so it's kind of a gotcha check. that you can then fix. So you can come right over here and fix that. You can also click on any of these and it will make a batch table so that you can actually batch it if you would like to change it that way. Not so much having to do with margin, just a little bit more information on something that may have changed in the item. The next one is margin all future. Now this one is, again, browser-based. So it depends on what items you have pulled up in the browser currently. And this is very similar to the margin analysis. But what this does is gives you a little bit more information. So if you're looking over here, I can see the date. So I can see where this was on August 1st. It was on sale for $250. The next time it was changed, anything was changed, this will show here. And today, the sale's going to end. So it's going to end. And it's going to go back to the regular retail price of $2.63. So I'm going back to my margin of 24%. I'm then going to put it on TPR. It's in a sales batch right now, or TPR batch right now. So it's going to be going on TPR for $260 on the 3rd. So it's going to show me that right here, what the new price is going to be and what my margin is. And then it's going to end and go back to the regular price. So whereas this is just kind of a snapshot, this will actually give you the dates of when these changes are occurring. So when it starts and when it ends, it's a little bit more detailed. The last one under the analysis is the margin matrix. This one takes a second to load because there's a lot of data that this accumulates. So what this does is gives you a matrix, gives you margin information on the selected item in a more global way, we'll say. So looking at this, by default, it's set to subdepartment. By default, it's also not set to pull from the current item. So this is I'm going to slim this down to just the current item to make this a little bit easier to look at it first. And what this does is it shows you all of the margins in the current subdepartment. So my grouping is set to subdepartment. So my item is in subdepartment 80. So this is all of the different margins in subdepartment 80. These are pulling from this field, from the TGM field. So this is what you have specified in the item itself the margin should be. And then you can go and look at it to see if it's matching. I'm going to click on this one. So these items show DIF. So they're different. So they are not matching. So according to this, my margin should be 24.79%. 24.79%. Sorry. But my margin is actually 9%, 0%, and 6%. So it's not matching. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what you wanted to do, but this is a way that you can check. So I set these items to a certain margin, and why are they different? You can also choose the grouping by category. So if the item is tied to a category, which mine is, it will pull up all the items in the category. And that way you can go through and do the same thing. What you had said the margin should be set to, and then you can go and check to see if it actually is set to that. Then you can make any adjustments. You can come in and change it, or you can do your calculator, whatever it is that you would like to do. The other option with this is you can uncheck current. And this is going to be a little bulky, but what this does, because I have it grouped by subdepartment, is show all of the different margins in each subdepartment. So I'm looking at my grocery subdepartment, and these are all the different margins that I have set in various items in my subdepartment grocery. So there is a lot. Then my grocery taxable, and it goes through there. So it's always broken up. So this will show you everything. So if you do originally open this margin matrix and it takes a few seconds to load, that's why it is looking at every single item that has a margin and giving you this information for you. Also, we'll go to category if you would like to see every single category listed out with every margin listed in those. So now that we've seen how you can look at them, how you can set the margin, there is another tool that's available that is not under analysis that I find pretty useful for maintaining the margin. It's under tools and it's under item performance check. And this is called items with low or high margin. And what this does is allows you to pull up items in the browser that are not meeting the criteria that you are putting in here. So what that does is, so if I want to see all the items that are lower than a certain margin, I would like to maintain a 15% margin on all my items in the store. You can come in here and see any items that are lower than that. Maybe you want to see any items that are marked too high. You can do higher than whatever you're setting in here. You can also base this off your regular price, TPR price, sale price, in-store price, whichever one you would like to look at. You can also look at your active price. That means regardless of what you are doing, regardless of what you have in here, it'll just look at your active price. So it could be sale price, TPR price, regular price. So it's up to you what you would think you would like to look at more. Generally speaking, anytime you put an item on sale, TPR, sale, or in-store, you're generally lowering your margin. So you're usually worried about your regular price, but if you wanted to spot check all your TPRs are still maintaining a margin, you can. You can also break this down. Instead of looking at an entire store, you can look at a certain sub-department or you can look at a certain vendor. This allows you to be able to maintain different margins in different sub-departments. So maybe your produce sub-department, you want to maintain a 15% margin, and your grocery department, you want to maintain an 18% margin. So you can come in here and you can check for anything lower than 15, we'll say 20% in my grocery department, which is in my lab is sub-department 10. Launch this. And then over here in the browser, it populates with all the items that are lower than 20% in my sub-department, and I can go and make adjustments using the calculate tool down here, using the TGM field up here. You can use the global apply, light codes, all those things that we went over before. The last thing I wanted to show was reports. So now you can see how you can check them, what tools are available. So what reports are available that let you look at your margin. So going into the reporting, the reports that are going to show your cost of goods are generally under inventory. If you're on our webinar about inventory, the inventory reports are broken down however it is that you would like to look at them. So under sub-departments, you have inventory, categories, inventory, vendor, inventory. So you can look at them in a broken down way. Generally speaking, any report that says cost of goods is going to show you your margin. So if you come in, you can look at this one. This is one I always find pretty useful. It's your sub-department cost of goods, regular versus promo. This allows you to see your margin. So you can set your date range, and then you can come in and see how many of each items you sold by quantity, by sales. So you can see your retail sales dollar amount, what you sold at cost, and then the profit that you made by dollar and by percent, your margin. So you can really do a side-by-side comparison to see how much you made and how much you off of your regular price versus your promotional price, your sale price. So you can see for this example, in my grocery sub-department, I sold more with my promotional price over this time period, but because of my lower price, because it was on sale, my profit was lower. I only made 93 cents, even though I sold 224 versus $92 off 125. Really cutting into your margin. So this is looking at this by sub-department. You can get this by item as well. It's right there. You can also not worry about it with the sale price versus regular price. You can just run a item cost of goods by sub-department that will just show you how much you sold by quantity, by sales, by cost, and what your profit was, not worrying about how much you made on sale versus how much you made with regular price. These are available, like I said, underneath your sub-department. If you go into categories with inventory, all those cost of goods are here. Under vendors, you also have the cost of goods. And under vendors, there isn't an additional one I did want to show, which is your vendor invoice with margin. If you are doing receiving, along with wanting to track your margin, you may want to see how much you're making when you are actually purchasing from the vendor. So you can run this report. This is your vendor invoice with margin. And what this does is it gives you what you paid. So this is off your receiving documents. These are your items. Here's your cost. Here's your base cost and then what you paid. How many are in each package? So your unit cost, your price, what your cost was when you purchased it, and the retail value at purchase. So you can see over here on your margin, your dollar amount and your percentage you'll make per case off of what you purchased for that vendor. This allows you to see if what you're paying that vendor is worth it. Am I paying too much for these items, or am I not? Maybe I don't have enough markup on these items. So you can get a snapshot right off of a receiving document. This is how much I paid on this receiving, and this is how much I'm selling. I will sell these items for. So this is going to be my profit off these. So that is a pretty useful report. I just wanted to make sure I highlight. So with that, that was what I wanted to go over for this webinar. Ben, did we have any questions?
Yeah, great job, Jen. Thank you for covering that. First, I just was wondering if you could just clarify for those on the call that might not be using SMS now or don't use light codes, what a light code is.
Oh, of course. So a light code is a way, so I'll pull these back up over here. You can tie together items together with a light code. So it helps you when you're doing pricing. So there's a field right here. So you just put in a field, it's alphanumeric. And that way, if you make any changes to one item, it will see that this item is like other items and suggest that you can make that same change to other items in the pricing capacity. I always use the example of like Campbell soup. There's 50 different flavors of Campbell soup. So instead of going into each individual item, you may want to just make a light code of Campbell. So that way, when you adjust the price on one or adjust the margin on one, it will then prompt you to see if you want to make that change on all of the ones that you've deemed like this item.
Great. Thank you for adding some more context there. Appreciate that. One question that came in here, does the margin only calculate from the primary vendor cost or on the actual cost that was paid when it came in, assuming you get the product from different vendors?
So if you are looking, I'll just pull up this one. There is the base cost, the landed cost, and the net cost. These are based off of your authorized vendor. So your base cost is going to be off of your authorized vendor. Your landed cost would be if you're selecting this on the vendor that you would like to have it based off of, you can do that. Net cost is going to be your average cost. So that would be the average cost of all of them together. Same thing up here. Just so I get that prompt. You get those same selections up here with the base cost, the landed cost, and the net cost. These are the future ones if they're in a future batch. So it's up to you which one you would like to choose when you are doing this.
Great, thank you. Couple other questions that came through. When setting the margins, how do you tell SMS to round up or to round down, and as well as round to the nearest dollar?
So that is actually a configurable that we set up, similar to where we went at the beginning with the configuration. So that's something we would work with you on at the beginning, where you're looking at this. There is actually rounding selections available on how you want to go through and do the rounding. So we would work with you to see which way you wanted to round. So it's going to be a universal setting that we would go through with you. Let me see, it's under right here. So it would be, we would want to go through these settings with you on where you would like to round. This is also something you can round up and with your discounts and everything like that. So we would work with you on which one works up. Round up, round down, rounding in general are usually the normal selections. So you can truncate, round up, 0.5 down, 0.5 up are the selections for that. And again, that's not something you can set on each individual item, but it's something that it's an overall setting that we would work with you to set that on.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen. Another question that came in here. Can the margin matrix report be downloaded as an Excel file?
Not off of here because it is tied to the browser. It needs the browser, but it's something that we could customize as an export.
Okay. So I'll follow up with the attendee that asked that question, follow up to see if we can explore that a little bit further. No problem at all. Okay. Another question, Jen, was that within the sub-department setup, there is a field called margins. Can you explain what that field is doing?
So that is actually just an informational field. if you come in to look at your sub-department itself, there is a spot for margin. This is informational. This is something that you can see what you want to maintain your margin as, but this does not affect your items, unfortunately. You do have to go into each item and set it here. But you can use this as a guide, if you will, on what you would like to maintain, so you can then bring it over to the items itself. Because of the calculations involved in setting all of the different margins, it needs to be on each individual item.
Okay. And then our last question here, unless another one comes in the next moment, is there a way to set a margin per a particular vendor? So if I'm always buying items from X vendor, can I always set the products from that vendor to be a certain margin?
When they're first coming in or changing the price?
For bringing in new products to generate a price based on the margin set on that vendor. Is that possible?
It is possible with customization. There is something that we can customize, so that way, as soon as you adjust the cost or bring in a new cost, it will automatically create a new price. What most customers prefer with that is that it creates a batch, so that way they can double check it before they apply it. Then rather than bringing in a new cost and then having a new cost from a new vendor be, $10, whatever it may be, and then it just automatically changes your retail price. So that way you have time to change your tags and stuff before it becomes an active price.
Great, thank you. So I'll follow up with that attendee as well. That looks like that is all the questions that have come through. So I wanted to thank everybody for your questions and for attending today's monthly Lunch and Learn. For any of our non-STCR customers in the call today, if you do have more questions about SMS or STCR, please do not hesitate to send an email to myself as shown on the screen here, bend@stcr.com, so we can coordinate the appropriate follow-up. And it looks like we might have one more question coming in real quick here, Jen. When running reports on margins, you have an item that previously did not have any cost entered, but does have movement. Will it show the margin as 100%?
No, it will be blank. It'll just be nothing there. It'll just be blank. It doesn't, it won't, because it's calculating by zero. So it's taking the price and trying to do a calculation. If there's no cost, it's calculating by nothing, by zero. So it won't show anything.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that question. Continuing on then, for all of our current customers in the call today, we appreciate your value your business. We look forward to helping each and every one of you with your retail technology needs. I'll follow up with a couple of you that had some questions that might require a little bit of customization on your system. Please do not hesitate to email or call our 24/7 help desk. We can assist you properly. As mentioned at the beginning, this session will be available after today for you and other members of your team to use as a future refresher on the topics covered. Our next session will be on September 28th. We will be going over self-checkout front-end operations and best practices. Hope to see you all there if you're currently using self-checkout or are curious about what that looks like, the day-to-day after you've put them in. Hope to see you there. If you have any questions in the meantime, again, do not hesitate to email me. Thank you for your time, and please enjoy the rest of your afternoons. Thank you.
Thank you.